Welcome to the NEF webcast. Today's topic is cloud retractability, and I'm your host, Joy Milkowski, and I'm joined today by Jack Pressman of Cyber Innovation Labs, and of course always from Mike Murphy, President at NEF. Welcome, gentlemen.
Joy, how are you?
I'm great, thanks.
Good.
Jack, how are you?
Great. Thanks
Wonderful.
for having me.
Oh, you betcha. I'm looking forward to talking today because there's a lot of conversation going on and has been for some time on cloud, but it's starting to change. And Mike, I would just love it if you would just start off by talking a little bit about what you're hearing from clients and associates surrounding cloud. What are they saying right now?
You know, cloud's one of the hottest topics in our business and has been for quite a while. It's also a very challenging topic, and the reason why it's challenging is it's a catch-all, and people look at cloud as maybe the solution to all their problems, or everything migrates to the cloud. And really what we've seen over the last couple of years is there's been a lot of transition to the cloud, and we're starting to see the first wave of people and our clients looking at, okay, maybe the cloud wasn't right or wasn't right for part of my infrastructure, and now they need to retrieve things from the cloud. And the best laid plans, it doesn't seem like there's always been a very clear strategy on how to do that. And again, with early adopters and people in the early part of the life cycle of cloud, maybe that exit strategy wasn't real clear. So we're starting to see people come to us and say, okay, I need to get my stuff out of the cloud. How do I do that?
Great. So Jack, how does that relate in your world then, and what you're seeing?
Well, for a large percentage of our clients, the cloud at first appears very attractive. It is a very cost-controlled type of environment, a resource on demand. It allows our clients in some instances to mitigate capital costs and move to a pure OpEx model. The problem is that fundamentally, as more data, more processing power, more of the corporate IT asset base is moved to the cloud, the client begins to realize a loss of control, or in a sense, a loss of the chain of custody of that data, of that processing power. So that trade-off, which is now starting to become a larger factor, was not evident early on when they began to look at cloud as just a panacea.
So I guess the next obvious question then is, why do companies need this, exit strategy or cloud retractability as a service?
Well, I think to provide some examples, corporations of all sizes, small, medium, large enterprise, Fortune 1000, are always going through cycles of acquisition, merge, roll-up. And when you look at critical corporate IT assets, part of a transaction would be the transfer of those assets to the acquiring entity, to the merging entity. And unfortunately, when a company has its critical IT assets in the ubiquitous cloud, public cloud, it's very difficult to quickly extract those assets, extract that data, and be able to compartmentalize it and create a transfer mechanism for that type of transaction. So being able to have some type of retractability capability and treating it as a service option, treating it as something that is built into the cloud offering, is a huge benefit to a lot of corporate clients who really are concerned about losing that chain of custody, that chain of control over that critical IT asset base.
So Mike, in your estimation, when does that conversation need to be had as you're talking with, companies as they're entering the cloud? What do they do if they're already in the cloud? When do you have that conversation?
So, excellent question, Joy. I think that conversation for the folks that are already in the cloud, I think it's a situation where you want to look at, okay, if I needed to leave the cloud, how would I do it? And as they continue, to Jack's point, they add more of that asset base to the cloud, make sure that they do have the ability to exit. Is there some mechanism that they have as they put together? And part of it is operational or logistical, but part of it is also contractual. So as the company that is, your cloud provider is putting together their business case and providing that pricing for you that you're going to use as an OpEx, well, if you wanted to leave, how does that affect the business model and early termination and all these great things? So that's part of it. The other part of it is, from a logistical standpoint, is that data tracked, and is it in a manner that you could pull it out of a cloud environment, or is it so distributed and fragmented that it would be very hard to pull it back out? So I think folks that are in there already need to look at, how is their contract structured and what would I do, and kind of create a plan before they start putting more things into the cloud. The folks that haven't gone to the cloud yet or haven't fully embraced it, it's a great time to start to look at it and say, okay, what's really important and what data would need to be part of my asset base? What data is replicated somewhere else, and I could easily pull it off a different system somewhere else. And I think you've probably got to look at that a little bit more holistically to say, do I have my bases covered here?
Well then, Jack, I'll point the question to you, and that is, what do enterprises need in their cloud retractability thought process? You mentioned cloud retractability as a service. What does that service entail, and what should they be asking vendors?
Well, that's a great question, Joy. And really, what we've done is when we designed our cloud platform, we began to look at not only providing resource on demand and building that resource on demand platform in a cost-effective manner, but we also began to look at security as a service, compliance, audit, all as a service component. And that led us to this concept of being able to build a retractability component. And where that began to point us was building a true 100% single tenant private stack. In a sense, it is really old school, where we, as a vendor, really stand up for the client, a complete cloud environment. But that environment is a dedicated platform, hardware, software, firmware, that sits on physical infrastructure that is the client's. We own it, we manage it, we serve it up as AWS would serve it up, but the client can actually audit it, they can see it, their security teams can not only visually and logically review it, but they also know exactly where their data is. And within that, we put in a financial component where the client can actually trigger a contractual component to acquire all of that infrastructure for a predefined price that's calculated by an equation within the contract, and literally roll that cloud out of the cloud centers and move it to wherever that client would like. So in a sense, it has the benefit of cloud, as we speak about it today, but also has the original benefits of a co-location component where a client can actually move those assets if need be. And that really became the groundwork for our cloud offering, because we realized that that capability, that ability for the client to keep chain of command control over their infrastructure and actual ownership if need be when desired, was not available for the current market leaders in cloud computing.
So Mike, it's interesting because some people listening to this might be thinking of all or nothing, right? I'm either all in the cloud or I'm pulling out of the cloud completely, but there is probably a wide range of options in between. So what's the right scenario then for, is it enterprise by enterprise? Speak to that a little bit.
I believe 100% of the deployments that we have done with our clients to date have been a hybrid. There is no one-size-fits-all. There is no exact answer. I do think it's somewhat driven by business in each business, but I do believe that you have to maintain flexibility. And that's the thing that we really encourage with our clients, is to say, okay, you want to migrate some things here, but let's have a contingency plan if that doesn't work according to plan. Sometimes simple things like office moves, We had a client that moved from the East Coast to the Midwest, and they had all their data in, at a certain cloud provider, and no problem with latency when they're on the East Coast. Everything was great. They moved to the Midwest based on the distance, connectivity, a whole bunch of things, and the way the cloud provider was set up, how their architecture was set up. Because there's something that people have to stop and actually consider for a second is the cloud is not this nebulous thing. It's infrastructure. It's just managed by somebody else. So it's real computers and servers and data centers and IP connections and all that stuff. So anyways, I guess the point there is that we have to encourage people to maintain flexibility. So when one thing changes, they're able to move and adapt. So I think it's a hybrid, and that hybrid and the components of that hybrid move around quite a bit.
I agree with Mike. I think each company, each enterprise needs to evaluate what data, what processing power is core critical to the enterprise. That information, that processing capability, which doesn't need to be under complete control of the company on, in a rapid time frame, can exist in a public cloud, but that IT infrastructure base that is most critical to the company, which is deemed the most valuable assets of the company, that absolutely has to be under the chain of control of the company, really needs to be in some type of a private cloud or a hybrid where a component of it is privatized so that they can easily control, migrate, upgrade, transfer if necessary.
Thanks for joining us for the NEF webcast on cloud retractability. For more information, you can always go to nefiber.com or call us at 877-DK-FIBER.